Can you pin his link too?
Done. Ladies and gentlemen, and ladies, welcome to Collecting Profit, your weekly sports talk and entertainment podcast show, whatever you want to call it. Got my partner in crime. I always get this wrong. I got to point that way, even though you're that way.
It's so weird how it's backwards.
My partner in crime, Anthony. Anthony, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Pleased to be here again. Excited to be able to pick John's brain tonight. So, Lockin, what's up, buddy?
Lockin, how you doing? And with us tonight, we have a special guest. We have Mr. John from Chasing Majors. John, how are you today, sir?
I'm awesome, guys.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
For sure.
Want to tell us a little bit anything about about what what your channel's about and everything, that type of stuff?
Sure. Started the channel in January, roughly. I think was when I started posting content. Really, I got back into collecting probably 2017, 2018, and fell more into the vintage side. And so I was a watcher for many, many years. Elite Co 3 comes to mind as one of those early channels that is very popular amongst this community. Mike, baseball collector, shortly thereafter. I was there for the early days of Jeff Wilson and the Chasing Cardboard.
Chasing Cardboard?
No, Wilson's the Market Movers. What's this channel?
Market Movers?
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember watching his content, early pandemic or pre-pandemic. So I've been kind of a watcher for a very long time, and finally decided, you know what? I want to continue to grow my community, and most of my friends are golfers and businessmen and things like that. They don't really spend a lot of time in the sports card community, and so what better way to reconnect than kind of take it online?
Yeah, it's funny so one of my subscribers said, "Man, you need to check out John from Chasing Majors," and I was like, "Cool, John Chasing Majors." I was like, "Man, that's going to be pretty cool," because when I think of Chasing Majors, I think of golf, right? Because that's what in the sports world, right? That's what everybody does. That you chase, you go after majors. So I'm thinking, oh wow, awesome! So, it's gonna be a cool, card collecting about golf and collecting and I was like, wow. But then I saw, you started doing, you do the golf and you also add the vintage in. So I was like, oh, very cool.
Yeah, so let me give you the backstory real quick, the abridged version. Chasing Majors was actually a golf publication that started years and years and years ago. It was truly me chasing the opportunity to play golf courses that have hosted major championships, specifically U.S. Opens and PGA Championship golf courses. I'm a member at a private country club here in Denver, Colorado. Our course has hosted major championships in the past. And so because of my business life, my regular kind of 9-to-5 job business life, golf was something that I could do when I was traveling across America.
Oh, wow.
And I was really enjoyed kind of the writing about golf and golf course architecture and golf courses and the history of golf. And at some point, I just transitioned that site after a lot of positive public affair related to that. I just kind of shut it down because I got a little bit burnt out with it. But Chasing Majors, I had the website, so I had the ownership to the URL. I've kept it for all these years, and at some point when the name Chasing Majors, I guess, just can kind of universally fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now I'm chasing just major cards that I want to collect. Some big boy cards out there. I've had some good fortune over the last couple of years to get some of those major hits, and still plenty more in the future, and hopefully share some of that journey with YouTube and everybody interested in watching.
So speaking with golf, I went to college with Rocco Mediate, Lee Jansen, and Marco Dawson. And from the publication standpoint, I don't know if you know Jeff Babineau.
Yep.
So Jeff Babineau is one of my fraternity brothers.
Nice.
When I go down to Orlando, we always get together and stuff like that. And I unfortunately, going to college is one thing with those guys. Learning how to play and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
For sure. I've had the good fortune of playing with some, extremely good professionals. And it's a completely different game. It's what I play from, because I play a lot of golf. I play over 100 rounds a year.
That's awesome.
What my version of golf and their version of golf are two different things.
I'm terrible at golf, but it's super fun. I'll tell you what, Tiger Woods does not make it look easy. Or I mean, does not, like the video game does not make it look like anything like it is in real life. Getting that ball to go where you want it, and the exact angle or slope, it's like, man, there's a lot of science that goes behind it.
Yeah. But Michael, I do have a pretty extensive golf collection. I fell in love with golf collecting probably 10, 15 years ago. I've kind of been in and out of the hobby, I think, really 4 times in my life. So my third iteration of the hobby, I got really big into golf collecting and actually kind of gave up a lot of my football, baseball, basketball and moved, some of that capital into my golf collection. And then, this most recent iteration since 2017, 2018 is when I kind of re-immersed myself back into those other 3 major sports.
How do you find it? Like when you get back and now you're going to collect golf, obviously it can't be easy because it's not, like what do you, do you see a lot of it when you go to shows?
No. Best place to buy is online. And the secret there, specifically if you're interested in like pre-war type stuff, really early golf stuff, it's in England. So checking like eBay UK is where you're going to find the best deals. And so I've picked up stuff that, the tobacco cards and things like that in the UK, Bobby Jones and Martin and some of those early pioneers of golf, and have them shipped over here, right? You're paying a little bit of a conversion rate. You're paying a little bit of a premium to get them here. And, then when you take them and get them graded, right? Not that I'm looking to sell those cards, but, immediately the value can 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. If you can get some of those early cards in really good condition. And over there, what I've come to realize, people in the UK, PSA they think it's a farce grading cards. I built some relationships and they just absolutely shake their head. They think we're silly Americans from the fact that, we're going to pay for somebody to authenticate or grade a card, tell us the condition of the card. And so, when you're buying cards from the UK, Australia to a certain degree, South Africa to a certain degree, and other parts of Europe, you're generally getting ungraded, premium. You can find some pretty premium stuff out there. And pre-pandemic, you were finding it for pennies on the dollar, generally speaking.
Yeah. So now, do you when you get them here, you grade? Who are you looking to grade with?
So my PC, I only grade with SGC. That's a cost thing, right? Like at the end of the day, for me, grading is not an important factor. It just truly isn't. Now, when I'm buying cards that are pre-graded, it becomes more important than when I'm, grading raw. But for me, it's about preservation. The odd thing about a lot of pre-war cards and even some post-war cards is when you get these odd sizes, right? The nice thing about your typical slab size is it kind of helps give us a uniform size to store cards and, to kind of sort through cards versus your regular, 3.5 inch by 2.5 inch baseball cards versus maybe something like a tobacco card. So there's some of that. And then there's the authentication piece of it, I think is probably more of the premium to truly know that you have something that's authentic. The actual grade, for somebody to tell me their opinion of what the quality of a card is, that's where I would agree with our brethren over in the UK that it's kind of a farce.
Is there a company currently that has a license for PGA that's like printing cards currently?
So the thing about the PGA and give everybody an idea of how that works. There's not a players union like there is in the other major sports here, hockey, NFL, NBA, and MLB. So every golfer is essentially a private contractor in essence. Now, they do sign their rights off to the PGA for marketing perspectives, but that doesn't include the sports card or the trading card side. So for Leaf, who's done cards in the past, Upper Deck, who's historically done most of the cards in the last 20-ish years, they have to individually work with every golfer as an independent contractor. And that's why when you had the Tiger Woods, what people would consider the rookie card, Phil Mickelson wasn't a part of that set because he didn't sign on until the next year. But that's the complexity of the golf world, that, you know, the MLBPA or the NFLPA, the luxuries that they can provide Fanatics or Leaf or some of these other trading card manufacturers.
That's interesting. So then you really don't know who would be able to be part of a set per se, because if they don't agree, they're out.
Yeah, you guys had Victor on last week, rookie card specialist, and so you look at some of the most recent golf set was a few years ago, and in that set they actually published rookie cards of people that hadn't been on the PGA Tour at that point in time, or if they had, they played a tournament here or a tournament there, but they didn't necessarily have their official card, PGA Tour cards. They were on the minor league tour card or minor league system, and so. In some respects, what is a rookie card? Would Victor and kind of some of his assumptions of what a rookie card, does that conform, right? If they're not on the big boy tour, do we consider that a rookie card? It'd be like, putting a Jason Dominguez card out, kind of like the first Bowman. Do we consider that a rookie card? I realize he's had some recent time up in the big leagues, but before he'd gotten an opportunity to see actual activity, that's kind of what these golfers are challenged with, and that whole sport.
And definitely an interesting way. You have to kind of look at it from that standpoint. Again, if each one is independent. So if someone does Leaf, but like everybody else if everybody else is, let's say, doing Upper Deck, so is the Leaf then the rookie? But because there's no official, like you're saying, there's no official card company because there's no associate or there's no union or association that they all completely belong to. That's why you could have the guys go ahead and bolt, for the Live Tour.
Yeah, well, and so like Dustin Johnson, who's on the Live Tour, one of the biggest golfers in the last 30 years, he has like an Upper Deck Goodwin card. That's a multi-sport set.
Right.
That was published. It's more of an artistic card, the card that I'm thinking of specifically. But then Upper Deck, the next year made like an official card of him, like a photographed type card of him. And most people, ComC, if you were to go look at like ComC as a prime example, they list the secondary card as his rookie card. But the Goodwin set technically is an earlier card. Rory's got some weirdness that way. Justin Thomas, who's one of the biggest golfers in the world right now, has some weirdness that way. And that's why, what is a rookie card? It's difficult for me to be a golf fan and see like SI for Kids. They put out a Tiger Woods card before Upper Deck did.
Right.
Is that the rookie card? Right. In many respects, that's a card I want to have in my collection. The Upper Deck card was mass produced, not that the Sports Illustrated for Kids wasn't. But there's nuance there that's where I think we as the hobby get to choose what it is that we want to collect. Right. And what we determine value should be assigned to those early pre-rookie cards, XRCs, whatever we want to call them.
So I guess as with some of the other sports, is it the same way that the older cards are the ones that have the value are the ones that are the names?
Meaning the manufacturer?
No, the player names.
Like the Tiger Woods.
The Bobby Jones, the Walter Hagen, those types of things.
The easiest way to assign value is just go to the individuals that have won the most major championships in the world. Again, Jack, Tiger, Snead, Hogan, Gary Player, Mickelson. If you've won a lot of majors, your cards are going to have more value. If you've won a major, which is honestly a hell of an accomplishment for most people, right? But those guys aren't necessarily going to have value. People want the best of the best, just like any other sport, right? We collect people that are marketable. So Arnold Palmer is very collectible. He didn't win the most majors, but he's got the Mickey Mantle effect, right? He just had the personality to go along with, his accomplishments. And he was a hell of a golfer. He's one of the greatest of all time to ever do it. But he certainly isn't as accomplished as Jack or Tiger or Hagen or Bobby Jones in some respects. But he'll always have that fanfare.
For sure. He is one hell of a Western Pennsylvanian.
He's a Western Pennsylvania legend. Yes, he is.
And he has a pretty flavorful drink named after him as well. I never knew why. Do you have any idea why it's actually called an Arnold Palmer? Is that something like he would always drink? Or
yeah, legend and lore is that's how he would order the drink.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool.
Now the John Daly, which is spiked with an adult beverage. I don't know if that's a true thing. I think that's more marketing, right? Yeah. But it's a fitting marketing ploy. But I think John Daly is more known for drinking beer and Jack Daniels than he is for a John Daly.
Now, with all of the different courses you've played, have you ever run into like any of these guys that you collect?
Yeah, I've actually played a few holes with Tom Watson, one of the greatest of all time to ever do it.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, back in Kansas, a golf course that I'm not sure truly if it's his home course or just a course that he was frequenting at the time. But I had an opportunity to play a few holes with him, which was a great opportunity, great time.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's real awesome. Yeah, I would imagine like from time to time, the bigger courses across America, if you're ever, traveling, whenever there's like a major tournament coming through, you'd probably be playing right around the same time. A lot of these guys. Have you ever played in any of like the bigger tournaments or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I played the courses. I haven't necessarily played in the tournaments or like the pro-ams, things like that.
Yeah.
Most of my opportunity was through the publication side of things. So, you'd reach out, I'd build more of that relationship with the staff who runs the pro shops and the day-to-day operations. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the membership, because most of these golf courses are private. And so you're really working with the membership committees and they're giving you an opportunity. There's courses that I played who have provided me an opportunity to play the course. But they didn't want necessarily the publicity that came across with that. It was okay, basically you're signing an NDA that it's okay for you to reference that you played the course and that you had a great time at it, but they didn't want you to really necessarily publish anything about the course. And then there's other courses. Midlothian in Chicago comes to mind. It's a course hosted some U.S. Opens way back in the day. They actually reached out and they wanted me to come play it and write as much as I could. And they literally were giving me history. And, I met with the historian of the course because they were dealing with some membership related issues and they were looking for the publicity. So I've seen kind of both sides of it. And then there's courses like Augusta National that, unless you've got a subscriber count that I don't have, it didn't matter what role I played. You just probably weren't going to get out there. And, I can say that I tried just a little bit, but I knew my boundaries there.
Do you have a favorite course that you've played out of like all of the places you've been?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a cliche, but and it's for sentimental reasons, but Pebble Beach. I played it a couple times now.
I was just there last week.
Yeah. So my dad, that was his bucket list course. He passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, probably close to between 10 and 15 years ago. And so he had some health related issues. And prior to him, his health getting really bad, I had an opportunity to play it when my son was like 2 or 3. Well, my son now is like 23. And so my son and I played it like his sophomore year of high school.
That's awesome.
My son's like +4 handicap. So he's a very accomplished amateur. And my wife and I are actually talking. We were at dinner earlier today, and we're talking about because she hasn't had an opportunity to play it. She's been on property a couple times, but she's new to golf over the last 5 years of actually playing. And we might actually head out there in October and
awesome.
Give her the opportunity to play Pebble. But sentimental reasons, that's probably the course that will always stay.
Beautiful too, man. It's you're golfing right on the ocean, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Just beautiful sights everywhere you look.
So does the how do I want to say this? So does the vintage card collecting of golf bring you into the vintage card collecting of the of the other sports, or is that just something that is all or is it just the love for vintage per se?
Yeah, great question. Probably, right? I guess I haven't really thought of it in those terms. When again, I mentioned I've been in the hobby really 4 times. So late 80s through the late 90s as a kid, like many of us. Very traditional story. You start as a kid, mom and dad buying you packs. You get hooked. I played a lot of sports growing up, played through college. So very much on the athletic side of things. And sports card collecting was just an extension of playing sports for me. Had great experiences as a kid. I had 3 local card shops in the general area that I lived in, went to high school and college in. And, that's really probably what hooked me. The 3 owners of those 3 card shops were salt of the earth type people. They were essentially extensions of family at some point in time. And the guys that, most of these guys were older guys, generally speaking, and not like, senior citizens. They were just older than me. I was a teen, right? And these guys would have been maybe, older teens, potentially, guys in their early 20s. And that became a brotherhood, like away from high school and friend groups and those sort of things. It was its own unique friend group. Anyway, real quick. So that was kind of, my first evolution in sports cards, my first time. And then much like everybody else, high school comes along, college comes along, girls come along, beer comes along, and you evolve away from it for periods of time. I came back to it a few years later, just kind of not really collecting, but I was buying packs of cards and boxes at Walmart and Target and Kmart's back in the day. And that was kind of evolution number 2. And that's probably when I sold some cards that I was probably regretful of today, right? Because you're talking really expensive cards today. Evolution number 3 was bringing my son into the hobby. And, as he was a preteen, late elementary age, as kind of rewards, I was trying to introduce him to the hobby. This is kind of around LeBron's rookie year, so early 2000s. And he just didn't take to it. But that's when I got into the golf side because, again, I was an athlete through college. And when all of that goes away, you're left with adult type sports, right? And for me, golf became that sport. And so for me, I just, I was so passionate about golf that that's kind of what that drew me in that direction. To your point, though, is that what pulled me into vintage sports in this kind of 4th iteration? Probably has influence. I would agree there. Going through that journey, because there wasn't a lot of golf knowledge out there related to the golf trading card space. There's a couple random posts on various forums, some of the legacy forums that we're all familiar with. But, when I really came back in this most recent time, 2017, I came back in with the mindset of there's cards I've sold that I want to re-own. And there's cards I've always wanted that I never could afford or never had the opportunity to have just because they were scarce enough that, where I lived, you just didn't find them. And, as the online marketplace kind of reopened itself up and everything's generally accessible to us, as long as you got big enough pockets, that's probably what really pulled me in. But I think probably that early phase of collecting vintage golf probably helped pique my interest.
So did you? I remember you're working on something. You're trying to get is it basketball Hall of Fame rookies, or is it football?
Yeah, so
basketball, right?
So I've got 4 main collections, not including some player collection stuff that I do. I am doing all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, their rookie cards. And I'm probably between 70 and 80% done with those. I'm trying to do the 75th anniversary NBA team, which is the 75 greatest NBA players according to that selection committee. So I'm trying to do their rookie cards. From a baseball perspective, currently I'm focused on post-war Hall of Fame, so 1948 through modern-day Hall of Famers. There's some PSA, probably is the pioneer of the checklist. Whether people were doing it, it's just become a PSA thing. But I'm working on that from a baseball side. And then golf. I'm still trying to add to the golf collection. There's a few really scarce cards out there that eventually I'll add to my collection. But you're also talking about cards. A couple of these cards are, $10,000 cards, right?
So are they scarce because they're old, or scarce because it's just like you don't see them very often?
Yeah. So there's a set that was put out by Spalding, and it was kind of like I don't know for a fact, but my interpretation of it is that it was almost like a giveaway with Spalding reps. Now, whether they gave them away like in stores that sold Spalding equipment, I don't fully know. But there's a couple of golfers in that Spalding set, and those cards, when you look at the pop reports, there's, single digits in some respects in the PSA pop reports, right? Or darn near single digits. And so
oh, wow.
At some point, I'd like to own those. They would actually probably take priority over things like a Mickey Mantle, which I know wouldn't. I'm probably one of a million people that card would take priority over, like a 52 Mantle. But that's a card I'd also love to own at some point in my life as well.
Yeah, I mean, you collect what you love, Like personally, I'd rather have a Clemente rookie than a Mantle, but then again, I'm from Pittsburgh. I mean, Clemente was like one of my favorite players growing up. So whatever you have that attachment to, that feels like a 52 Mantle to you. I say go for it.
Well, and I rarely talk about this in my channel. I've mentioned it from time to time on some of the videos. I may have one of the largest John Stockton and Karl Malone collections that you guys will ever, for a person that you'll ever meet.
Really?
Like I've got literally thousands of Karl Malone and John Stockton cards.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I grew up on the Utah-Colorado border, and the Jazz were my hometown team. And I went to college at the University of Utah. And, for me, and that's, I was a kid during their heyday.
Oh, sure.
And so, and Utah had one professional sports team, and that was the Jazz. And so, for me, they're gods, right, in my world. Even as a 44-year-old man, they're still gods. I've had the great fortune to meet both of them multiple times and spend time with both of them. But I've got some of the largest. I've got one of the largest collections. I probably don't have the finest collection of all time. I'm sure that there's people out there that have much more vast or in some respects some more rare stuff than I do. But I would put myself in probably the top 1 to 5%. One might be a little bit too bold to say, but certainly in the top 1 to 5% of Karl Malone and John Stockton collectors in the world.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So now, when you say that, is it one of those things where it's, if you go and you see one, do you have to get it, or do you kind of like, well, I could do without that one? Is it that type of, anymore?
It's if I see it, I buy it, and which is ironic because there was a card at the National, and the guy wanted too much, and I just, for whatever reason, I assumed it was going to be there, and I made the mistake. And it was there. So I went Wednesday. I seen it. I didn't buy it Wednesday. I went on Thursday. I seen it. I didn't attend the National on Friday, and the guy moved it on Friday. It just happened to be another Jazz collector, or somebody who had a desire to buy the card. And I came back Saturday with the intent to buy a couple of cards, including that card. And it was actually a jersey card, a game-worn jersey card, patches or swatches, whatever term you want to use. So multicolor, for Hornacek, Malone, and Stockton. And
oh, wow.
He wanted $100, which isn't a lot of money, generally speaking, for a card like that. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to pay $50, I offered, I was trying to be, fairly aggressive in my offers. He basically was like, no, I could probably do maybe 85. And, I was going to go try and do some dickering on that following Saturday before I flew out of Chicago, and lo and behold, it was gone. So, but generally, yes, most of their cards, you're probably talking $100 and less. And so, if I see something, and I'm dealing with like some of the more rare stuff, or I'm looking to upgrade. Maybe mine has a dinged corner because I owned it as a kid,
right?
Or upgrading. So, some of that I buy on ComC, generally speaking. But if I see it, I buy it.
Makes a lot of sense.
So you mentioned the Nationals. I remember when we talked earlier. So this was your first Nationals that you've gone to.
Mm-hmm.
What was your overall impression? Do you think you'll go again? Like, what was your whole? What was the feeling you got? Was it like what did you think it was going to be, and what was it? Did it meet, exceed, or was it a little bit below your expectations?
When I first walked in, I was a little bit overwhelmed. And I think I was overwhelmed because I walked into the breaker portion, and then I kind of deviated to the wrong side because there was a kind of a smaller section than there was the bigger section. And so immediately upon walking in, I was like, oh, the breaker stuff, zero interest there. And then I kind of deviated over to where like tag grading was and spent a few minutes. Prior to that event, I hadn't seen a tag slab in person. Seen them online, of course, but I went up. They were gracious. They actually went and pulled out a card, let me kind of, look at the slab, hold it, kind of fill it. They were super generous with their time.
Yes.
And then I kind of meandered around that section over there. And so I went from unimpressed to like, then it was overwhelming. Once I finally got the full effect, then it became an overwhelming experience. It did hit all the marks. I fully expected to see every Mickey Mantle out and every Willie Mays card out, and all those super rare cards. To a certain degree, it's as much a show from I'm going to show my greatest cards as a dealer as it is. So you're going to, you're not going to see a 1975 Jim Palmer card. If you do, it's a PSA 10 or a elite copy. So you're not going to see stuff like that, generally speaking, and maybe not. It's too strong of a word. You might be able to dig through and find some of it, but you're going to see hundreds of 50s Mickey Mantles, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, the play ball, the Gowdies, the Babe Ruths, and it's amazing. It's a museum. It really is a museum. Most of that stuff's above my pay grade at this point in time, or at least what I'm willing to pay for most of it. But I was actually pretty surprised. There were dealers willing to deal, and that shocked me. I expected that, and I kind of heard from some folks that had attended in years prior that maybe the dealers were a little bit non-flexible on prices. And that wasn't my experience. Like if you had cash and you were aggressive in your prices, you could find the deals out there. I threw out plenty of offers and got told no, or we were really close, but it was above what I wanted to pay for it. And, my opinion at some point, just because you were seeing so many of these cards, I'll just go to the next guy and see if they got it.
Right.
And so, I was pretty aggressive in my approach at some point, but I was unimpressed, overwhelmed. I walked away, and probably the one word I would just say is wow. Like, it was wowing.
Yep.
It really was.
Yeah.
There was a Denver dealer out there that I don't do a ton with. I bought some cards from him, so I spent some time at his table and kind of getting his opinion. And he's a regular goer for the National as far as dealer that sets up, and so she shared some opinions. But kind of part B to your question, I want to go to Cleveland. I've never been to Cleveland. It's one of the few cities I've never been to. Now, I've never had a reason to go to Cleveland, and this sounds like the perfect reason to go to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Outside of going and watching, because I'm a huge Steelers fan, right? Hope you guys will appreciate that. So outside of going and watching the Steelers beat the shit out of the Browns, I'm sorry.
I like this guy.
Outside of that, I can't think of another reason to go to Cleveland.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, if you're Anthony, you go because of the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I do like the I'm accustomed to terrible basketball from the Cleveland Cavaliers, although they've been pretty decent since we've gotten Donovan Mitchell from my Jazz. So,
yeah,
but yeah, up until Donovan Mitchell, we were pretty shaky.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about the National. If you had cash, they would work with you. But I saw guys turn down, people who wanted to use a credit card or wanted to do like goods and services on PayPal, because they're like, no, man, I don't want to pay the fee. I'm giving you money off. Watch the guy negotiate on an Ellie De La Cruz card, down to like, I don't know, like 2,200, 2,300. And the guy was like, cool. All right, great. How you want to pay? The guy goes, I'll do PayPal goods and services. And the guy was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to pay that fee. The price I gave you was a cash fee. If you got the cash, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So then the guy says, well, I don't have that cash. What will you do PayPal? He goes, so he picks up the card. He goes, oh, 2,500, like it says on the card.
Yeah.
He goes, what I mean? And that's that's what I noticed, at the National. If you had cash, you could barter, go back and forth. But when it came to credit cards and all that kind of stuff, some guys are like, no.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't want to.
90% of the dealers out there, I don't blame them. Right. At the end of the day, government wants enough of our money, and I'm not going to go necessarily there. But there's reasons you don't want to pay more in fees to the PayPals and the various fee structures there. Some of these guys, they were willing. They were willing to give you discounts with cash, and so the number one advice I would ever give to anybody: take as much cash as you possibly can. That's number one. Number two is wear comfortable shoes. Number three is bring water because it was hot as hell.
Oh my God, that first day, man, oh
Crazy.
Man, holy smokes.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was just jammed. So it was bigger than when Anthony and I went to Chicago. The first one that I ever went to was the one 2 years ago in Chicago. And that whole section which was back by where the autographs were and all that kind of thing, all that whole piece was all brand new. That wasn't there the last time. So I was the exact same way. We weren't there for the whole time. The VIP thing I didn't care for that. So we just did regular tickets. So you had to come down through that corner. When you came down to the corner, it was like, holy smokes, same type of thing. It's like, wow, where the hell all this area come from? Then you get through and so on and so forth. But yeah, I had the exact same, the wow factor and the holy cow. And then, then it's like, did I see everything? I don't know if I did. Did I maybe? Because then all of a sudden, like you kind of, as you're walking, you kind of get lost, even though it's funny, even though everything is straight aisles, you seem to get lost as to like where you are. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't go over there. Wait, I did go over there. No, I didn't go over there. And it gets confusing sometimes. And the funny thing is, the map they give you to fit the whole damn thing, they put it on an 8.5 by 11 paper. So it's still no good.
Yeah.
You can't see anything out of it and stuff like that.
Yeah, if there was one thing I was blessed with in life, I'm the type of guy, specifically, directionally. If I've been to somewhere once, I can get back, right? So if I've been to your house and I haven't been there in 10 years, I can generally get back, right? And so that kind of also fits in the sports card space.
Oh, heck yeah.
I'm that guy that if I've been there, I know, so I didn't necessarily have some of the challenges, but I was watching people literally just spin in circles. Well, where was I going? And have I seen this? Have I not seen this? So yeah, for sure. It was a monster show. It's literally the biggest show I've seen, of course. Super good time. It's cliche. Everybody says this, but everybody should go once. I mean, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been consider myself a sports card collector for 40 years. It took me 40 years to actually get to the mecca of sports card shows. And,
Yeah.
you know, even if it takes somebody watching this 40 years in their journey, you know, it's absolutely worth the time.
Figure out a way to go. I mean, you know, and you know, and you know, you don't have to, you know, the funny thing is go, like you said, forget the actual buying and selling and trading aspect. Just go there to walk around as though if you were going to the, you know, Museum of Modern Art, if you were going to a museum, if you were going to a Smithsonian, and you can just literally walk around and see that type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and not, you know, and still be amazed without, you know, having to buy anything. Just that walking around and going, oh my God. And I, like the first time we went, I was like, oh my gosh. Then you go to the next table. Oh my gosh. You go to the next table. Oh my gosh. And you're like, it's like it at one point it seemed like every table you went to was like a holy crap.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. Wait a minute. That guy has 52 Mickey Mantles in his case.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is he probably has like 5 Zion cases underneath his table that has all the stuff that couldn't fit in his cases too.
Yeah. Yeah, there was somebody who had a display with all those Michael Jordan rookie cards. I don't even remember. It was like 30, 40 PSA 10.
Oh, I remember. Was that Probstein that had those?
It might have been Probstein.
Yeah, it was Probstein.
I spent very little time at some of those bigger guys' tables, but you'd walk by and you seen it. You were just like, holy crap. Like, yeah. Dom actually threw a question on here. And I'd say to Dom, I've been around a lot of professional golfers, and I think I could take half the field. I'm not a small guy, I'm not the biggest guy of all time, but yeah, I've seen some of these dudes. I feel confident that I could get in the wrestling ring with
so if they could fight, they'd be playing hockey like Happy Gilmore. Then is what you're saying?
Yeah. Tiger's big cat. He's a big cat, dude. That's a cat I ain't getting in there with.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in there with.
Kepka's well put together.
Kepka, nope. Bryson DeChambeau, no, thank you. There's some good boys out there, but generally speaking, the average golfer is like sub 5 or sub 6 foot tall and 150 pounds wet. So, you know, all I got to do is fall on him and kind of lay on him for a minute. I think I can beat him.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you with your journey into getting the vintage and going back and getting the cards that you had gotten rid of, when you look at those cards, are you looking to get them raw, graded, and does it matter what if you're getting them graded? Is it just to have the card, or does the grade actually matter also if you're going to pay the money to get them graded?
Yeah. So when I left the hobby kind of in the late 90s, PSA was starting to come around, and there was BCCG and Beckett was starting to come around. And then my second iteration, third iteration, obviously grading just continuously got more and more popular. From my perspective, when I got back in this most recent time, the only reason why I started buying grading cards was I was afraid of spending money on fake cards. And because all of them I was buying online, generally speaking, I wasn't venturing out to my local card shops and looking to pick them up there. I didn't have that comfort of buying ungraded cards. Now, I did buy quite a few raw cards originally, specifically in the vintage space, but anything kind of north of, call it $50, I had one rule initially back in 2017, 2018. And that was, it had to be graded. I wanted the authenticity. I wanted the authenticity piece of it more than I wanted the grading piece. So, and at some point, I guess that still exists today, right? I prefer the authenticity piece of it. But I also now today, I'll be honest, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to the fact of, I know what a PSA 5 should be. And if that's the level of card I'm going to buy, you know, I'm going to give it a look over. And if it hits the centering looks roughly what I want it to be, now I'm not thinking about creases because a PSA 5 shouldn't have a crease. And if it does, we got a problem. Right. And so now I kind of maybe take advantage of some of that where I'm not necessarily looking as in depth at the card. It's a quick glance at the corners, a quick glance at the overall centering, quick glance at the back to see if there's any marks or penmanship or paper loss, things like that. But you kind of expect certain things in a PSA 3 versus a PSA 5 versus a PSA 7. And so it's probably more laziness in some respects. And then, one of the things that I try and do is do collector grade. I don't always do that because, quite honestly, I've got great numbers and statistics that will tell you we shouldn't be buying collector grade. If collector grade is a PSA SGC 7, go to a 6. You will save so much money by going one grade below. And generally, you'll get the exact same level of card, generally speaking, and you will save yourself, 20 to 50% by just going from collector grade down one subgrade.
Really?
Oh yeah. And generally speaking, I mean, we've all said this: buy the card, not the grade. Buy the card, not the grade.
Yeah.
Generally, when you're talking about a 6 versus a 7 or a 5 versus a 6, or even the half grades, if we're talking SGC and companies that do the half grades, you can save yourself just a boatload of money. And so I'm a big fan of some of that. And so I probably spend more time shopping for the best deal in maybe the sub-tier grades. But, my mindset is collector grade. I don't want I'm not going to go buy PSA 10s. It's not my world. It's not my collection. I'm not going to pay premium prices. I'll let Jeff Wilson and that crew go focus on PSA 10s.
And do you, when you have a card, and whatever card it is, card X, you have a Dr. J rookie card, right? And you have that in a PSA 5, let's say.
Yep, that's what I do have.
I know.
Nice
I watched at the
National. Picked up that exact same card at the National.
That's awesome.
So you have that card. Do you, from time to time, look online for a 6, or are you like, you know what? I got it. I got the 5. I'm good to go. Move on to the next one that I don't have.
This is only a new thing for me, and the answer is yes. In probably the last 6 months, I found myself going through the cards I own and almost critiquing them, re-critiquing them. And it sounds foolish, and this is not the advice I would give anybody, but I find myself running across, like I recently picked up an upgrade for the 1979 Ozzie Smith rookie card. Not a crazy expensive card. I own a 4.5, and I ran across just a crazy, ridiculous deal on a PSA 6, type of deal that you and I would buy every day and not think twice about it and potentially flip it, resell it, even give it away at the price that I picked up the card for.
Oh, wow.
Ridiculously low. But at some point, right, like I'll go through my collection and I'll put in my memory bank of, maybe I'd like to upgrade that card.
Right.
Now, am I doing that with $1,000 cards? No, generally not. Am I doing that with the $10 to $50 cards? Probably more in that vein. And it's at some point just the ability of, if I'm not happy with the one I got, and I can upgrade it for probably, as I've shared on my channel, and I know we've all kind of talked about loosely, I think the cards are getting more attractive. Following the last couple of years, and as those prices become more attractive, I've found just some really good deals on marketplaces that maybe people won't buy from just because they don't like individuals that are associated with certain marketplaces, or they're not comfortable buying from those marketplaces. But I found some really good deals, and so I have upgraded more probably in the last 6 months, which is crazy because there's plenty of cards that I still want for my collection that those dollars could be allocated towards. And instead, I've purchased upgrades essentially.
Well, it makes sense as the prices come down, and you can get into a better looking card. Why not go ahead and take advantage of that? You hold the other one, the prices come up a little bit. You get you sell the 5 and you keep the 6.
Yeah.
For something along those lines and everything. And we have a. Dom has another one. Dom is our, he's our fashionista.
I don't do the crazy stuff. I play with some guys that do all the crazy stuff.
Basic stuff.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I'm as vanilla.
He's not wearing knickers and putting on his favorite socks.
No.
So, Another thing that you do, which I've been watching your series of, which I'm still like, wow, I never even thought about doing it. Is so you open up a ComC store
Mhm.
and you are buying and selling on ComC without ever having the cards in your hands.
Yep. Yeah, my biggest regret in the last 5 years is not getting into ComC 5 years ago. Right. And, I've had a lot of conversations with people that have kind of followed a very similar path after having conversations with me. Like their interest was there, and people have reached out to me over email and asked very specific questions. But January, essentially, I had cards that I had purchased on ComC. They were raw. I had then subsequently bought graded copies for my collection. And I was in this moment of like, do I keep them raw, which I'm fine with. I've got plenty of duplicates that are raw versus, graded copies. My collection is pretty vast. And, so as we kind of came into the first part of January, I was like, you know what, why don't I just resell them? And then I kind of got that idea because I was just kicking off the YouTube channel at the same time. And I was like, maybe I could do I almost thought of doing like a weekly series, which didn't actually come to fruition. I was like, maybe I could do some content this way. That wasn't a piece of content that you regularly seen on YouTube at the time.
No.
Right. And so, I had lots of great ideas or kind of these grand ideas that never came to fruition. But so I just basically took some cards that I no longer had a desire to send to myself for my PC. And I listed them, and they sold relatively quickly. I listed them. I got my business degree, and so business is something that in my 9 to 5 I spent a lot of time thinking about. After all the fees, which are fairly nominal as far as the transaction fees on ComC, roughly about 5%, I still made like 30-ish% on every card. And so I'm like, okay, there's something here that I think we've all known about. It's just how much time and effort you wanted to put into it. And that's when I kind of kicked off the idea of, all right, let me give myself 3 months. Maybe I'll do a 3-month recap video, which was what was my original ComC video, was kind of a 3-month recap after doing it and how I kind of progressed over those first 3 months. And then that became a monthly thing. And actually, I didn't put out a video this past month because I was not in town. So I'm a month behind at this point. But, from the video series essentially was going from $0 or very little money, right? Growing it into now I've sold, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I've sold $3,000, $3,500 worth of cards, making 30% along the way. And that 30%, I'm literally just continuously reinvesting. Mm-hmm. And, so that 30%, it's grown up over $1,000 in total profits.
Nice.
And again, I never touched a card. All I do is literally buy it from you. I sell it to Anthony. Yeah. I add a 30% increase on the price. Now you got to buy the right things, and you got to have some intelligence as far as what you're doing and what's hot, what's not, what time frames, what markets you want to buy. You want to be buying in the off season and listing them as we head into the season. So there's strategies there for sure that everybody should certainly look at. But what I guess I proved to myself, if you wanted to come invest 10 grand, there's plenty of money to be made out there, right? And the irony is most of the people that you're probably selling to are doing the exact same thing. So I buy a card for $5. I turn around, I list it for $8 and sell it for $8. Oftentimes the guy buying it from me is buying it from me for $8 to list it for $10. So they're doing the same thing. It's just I got into the card at a much better price, and I made my 30%, and now they're trying to make their. And I'd say most guys that are flipping on ComC probably, I would guess, are making less than 10% based upon, because because we're competing for the same cards. The accounts that are flipping on a regular basis, and then you go see what they're listing the cards for, and what and some of them are very aggressive, like. There's a couple of guys I've questioned how are they making money? It's got to be a total volume game. because what they bought the card for and what it appears they sold the card for, since you can't truly tell what they at least have it listed for. They're making 5-10%. My goal is 30, and you can make 30%, right? But that 30% is worth my time. 5% probably wouldn't be worth my time, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. I when I saw that, I watched a couple of hours. I was like, dang, again, it's a time thing.
Yep.
It's being able to, find the ones and stuff. And I mean, I really haven't dug deep into ComC's websites. I don't know how, how you can go through and search and look in how sales are going on a certain card or something along those lines, or if you could even do that type of stuff. But I just found it interesting, is that one of those things of the way you had done it, of basically it's like, you have that initial investment that you have to buy some cards, but then after that, you're just using what they throw in your bank account, basically. Yeah. Not in your bank account, but what they hold in your ComC account.
Yeah, that's the interesting piece, right? So you think of this from a business perspective. They're their own ecosystem. So from a tax obligation perspective, just think of it in those terms, what the IRS is going to want. Technically, you're selling cards for ComC credits, because when you invest money into the platform, you're buying ComC credits. It's a $1-to-$1 exchange, right? But then when I buy and sell those, what I'm essentially doing is getting credits. And so as long as you technically never cash that out, you could argue that, there's no tax implication, if the IRS came knocking on the door.
Oh, wow.
Right. So that's an interesting thing. And that's not advice for anybody. That's, if you certainly go talk to a CPA, right? Which I have, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. But, you should do your own due diligence there. But it is an interesting micro environment in the sports card world. And then, if you're transitioning those gains into a PC card, and by the way, ComC is not the perfect platform. There's some fee structures that are really hokey, and trying to get your money out is a little hokey. They have their own marketplace and suggested retail price, which is not even close to being correct. Nobody should ever look at that. Do your own due diligence. Understand how to research cards on eBay, Terapeak, whatever source you want to choose is a more adequate source of truth. But, and quite honestly, if a card sells for $5 on eBay, ComC, it might regularly sell for $7, $8, $9, $10. So oftentimes it's got its own marketplace, and the values associated with the sales on ComC, it's interesting because they'll sell for premium prices. When you look at, well, these guys could go buy it on eBay and get it for a much cheaper price. So it is its own industry, interesting kind of micro environment within the sports card industry, but I really like it.
Yeah. Mr. Fuego is saying, if he's not mistaken, ComC does most of the legwork for you, i.e. selling, packaging, shipping, etc. So the percentage they take should cover those services.
Yeah. So here's the hack. So Michael gets cards. He gets 100 cards. He sends them to ComC. They're going to charge him 50 cents to take photos, to list them in their database, to store those cards. Okay. You paid 50 cents per card, right? Is the average Joe Schmo out there. I come along, I buy it from you. I don't pay 50 cents. So only fees I'm paying is the transaction fee when I sell it. So Michael takes those 100 cards. He sells all 100 of them. He's paying 50 cents per card to do all of those things. And then he pays a 5% transaction fee when I come and buy those 100 cards from him. Well, when I buy those cards, I pay no fees. There's a couple fees. If the card's over like $50, you might pay a fraction of a percent or something like that. So I wouldn't say there's no fees, but the fees are, nothing even close to what you're going to pay on eBay or, if you're originally sending those cards to ComC. So my hack essentially is I don't pay any of the upfront fees. I want nothing to do with that, generally speaking. Right now, will I in the future? Sure. I have plenty of plans. I've been buying cards on the side to send to ComC. but I want to avoid as much of that as possible. So when I buy them from Michael and I sell them to Anthony, I'm now just paying a 5% transaction fee when Anthony buys the card from me for 30% above what I bought it from Michael. And my fee structure is a fraction of what, Michael, your fee would be in that space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's the hack.
That's the whole reason I haven't even gone on there yet, is because of that 50 cents a card. But
that's
you're
the hack.
That right out.
Yeah, that's the hack.
That's
real
smart.
So the middleman, I'm just playing middleman, and I'm making 30%, and I'm paying them 5%, right? And so really, I'm kind of listing the cards, generally speaking, about 35%. And don't get me wrong, I don't make 35% on every card, literally. But I make 55% on one card and 19% on another card, depending upon the marketplace and whatever. But across my averages, I'm making roughly about 30% across the board. And I never touch the card. I don't have to process it. I would sell everything on eBay, even with the 13% fee, whatever. I hate shipping cards out. I don't have time to package a card, to ship it, and then deal with returns or deal with shady buyers that, want to claim that it was damaged, or, I've now invested all these fees and they claim that the card showed up and it wasn't the same as I described it. That's the crap. I don't worry about any of that. The minute in my scenario, the minute Anthony buys that card from me, I have no obligation. Like there's, Anthony's as the final buyer, is 100% stuck with what he's got, and so that's kind of why I like that system.
Okay, so yeah, right. You're vaulting with eBay. You're vaulting with ComC.
Yep.
But if you don't have pictures, how do you relist the card?
Because again, you had the 100 cards, you listed them, they took pictures at that point in time.
Right.
When I buy them from you, now I buy the rights to the pictures and I buy the ownership of the card.
Oh, wow.
I never physically touch the card. I never handle the card. It's never sent to me. But the photos they took the minute you paid that 50 cents for it to be listed on their platform, you paid that original price. That card could be sold 15 times after you sold it to me. You could sell it to me. I could sell it to Anthony. Anthony could sell it back to you. And we could do this circle 15 times in a row. And it's still the exact same photos that they took initially when you paid the 50 cents to put it on their platform.
Oh, wow.
That's where it's a racket. That's where it's a hack, right? Yeah. It's a hack. As long as you know the industry well enough, and you know what cards to buy and what cards will have value and where the market is going. The sports card market is still trending, right? Because even in the worst markets, and we've experienced one of those recently, I tell you what, people didn't stop buying sports cards. I bought plenty of them. I know you guys did. Everybody watching this channel bought plenty of sports cards, whether you're cracking packs or whether you're buying individuals. We all bought lots and lots and lots of sports cards.
So Dom says, have you had anything from ComC shipped to you?
I have. Matter of fact, I just shipped 150 cards to myself. Quite honestly, a lot of those are going to be John Stockton and Karl Malone cards that were kind of upgrades from the cards. I found a better quality one, or mine had a ding on it or a bum cord or something like that. I think I've shipped probably 5 times to myself. Here's the benefit in shipping. So again, think of them as a vault. You vault the cards with them. There's 2 ways to set up your ComC account. You can set up your account as a reseller, which means if you don't set yourself up as a reseller, then you're paying for the card, plus you're paying some kind of, I would call it, if you think of shipping and handling back in the days when infomercials had shipping and handling.
Yeah.
If you're not set up as a reseller, which to be a reseller, you literally go into your profile and click that you're a reseller. That's all it takes, right? But anytime, if you're not a reseller and you buy a card, you're paying a handling fee. So, Michael, you might list a card at $1, but me as a buyer, I might pay that $1, but as a reseller, I see that card for 75 cents. You listed it as $1. Your transaction is going to get $1. This is the magic behind it. Me as the reseller, I'm not paying that processing fee, that handling fee.
Ah.
Now, if I ship that card to myself, it'll tell you when you're set up as a reseller, non-graded cards, if I then ship that card to myself, I pay a 25-cent premium plus the shipping. If it's a graded card, you pay $1 premium plus the shipping. So for people not set up as resellers, one of the benefits to buy as collectors is you buy a bunch of cards, and for a flat rate price, call it $5 to $10, you can ship a whole bunch of those cards to yourself as a personal collector. That's the benefit, right? Sits in their vault for a period of time. And so that's why you don't want to buy a card, spend $4.99 to ship it, buy another card, spend $4.99. That's why you want it to just kind of sit in your port. That's what they call it, is a port. You want it to sit there until you've built up enough cards, then you mail that bigger shipment to yourself. So I've done that about 5 times, roughly. And generally when I do it, probably the smallest shipment I've done is about 20 cards. Probably the biggest is this one, which is 150 cards. I might have done another one kind of in that 150 to 200 card range. But as a reseller, if you're going to do the reseller, look into some of that. Just know if you are buying PC cards using your reseller account, you will end up paying a bit of a premium to ship that card to yourself eventually.
Want to get cards slabbed via PSA? Take the pics PXA sends you, and use those pitches to list on eBay, and then bite the bullet. I mean, which it makes sense, but I think it's also the shipping and the handling of the cards and the customer service piece. That you have to deal with then.
Yeah, you guys recently, and maybe it's not that recent, but when I binge watched your stuff, when I found your guys' channel a few months back, you guys did million card clubs collector. I can't remember his channel.
Oh yeah,
right. And I've watched his channel from time to time, kind of on and off. I normally binge watch Bo's stuff, and he's a big eBay seller. Matter of fact, I think he's kind of not anti-ComC. He wants to own all of it in house, if I remember right. Maybe his position's changed recently, but I don't think so. Right. The key thing is the time that it takes for you to list the card, take the photos, make sure that your listing is up. All that's free. And this is kind of what his sales pitch was in other, channels that I've watched and in some of what he shared with you guys. All that's free, right? So it costs him nothing to list a card. It takes him time. Now he's not paying himself time in that. At 50 cents, right? If I had 10,000 cards to list, it's worth 50 cents a card for me to pay some kid $8 an hour to do it, or pay ComC to do it. Now you could say 50 cents is a bit absorbent over time, and I'm not going to argue that. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, right? But to deal with all the processing and then deal with all the shipping on the back end, again, that's my biggest thing I want to avoid. Is the logistics related to shipping, and then the stress of it getting there, not getting there, getting there damaged. As we moved into this plain white envelope world over the last 4 or 5 years, that's a whole different environment you got to deal with. If I'm paying 13%, or if I'm paying 50 cents plus 5%, for low dollar cards, I'm not saying Bo's wrong. He knows his business, but I don't see Bo's version of his business as advantageous. If I was in his shoes, those million cards are going to ComC. They can deal with that crap. I'll deal with the listings. I'll deal with making sure that my listings are competitive, and then I'll just take whatever percentage I'm getting on top of it at the very end. And I think if you did this in mass, even if you're paying that original listing fee, I think that there's a ton of money you can make as long as you're sending the right product. And so for me, I guess to finish that rant, right, because this probably will get talked about or should be talked about. For me, the number one most difficult thing for anybody doing flipping or buying is the buying piece. That's the piece you got to get right.
Right.
You got to understand the marketplace. You got to get the right purchase price. And you've got to be able to find the inventory. I think that's the most difficult thing for 99% of people who want to do flipping or reselling, whatever term you want to use. It's where do I get my inventory? It's one thing if you got a shop, and of course you got all the overhead related to a shop. but you have people coming to you. Guys like me, I can put up as many Facebook posts as I want and Craigslist ads and local newspaper ads, right? The most difficult thing is, where do I get the quality product? Where do I get it consistently so that I can make sure that I can make enough profit to, turn this into something that, whether your goal is to do this as a full-time job, or your goal is to make extra money, or fund your personal collection, which is kind of what I'm doing in essence. Where do you get that product?
Yeah, inventory definitely varies. That's what gets me. Like I'll watch these channels, or all of a sudden, the thing will come up, a YouTube suggestion. I bought 200,000 cards. I bought 500,000 cards and everything. And I sit there and I watch, and the guy shows up. He opens up his car. The back of his car is friggin' full of cards and everything. I'm like, holy cow! And then and I'm like, where do these people find these? Because I look the same places they do as far as online, right? I look at the Craigslist, I look at Facebook Marketplace, and all that stuff. I don't see anything. I don't see anything that comes damn near close to this. You may see somebody who has,
1990 tops.
a big box of cards that they want, $400 for, and there's maybe 1,000, 2,000 cards in there. Not these collections of, I bought 500,000 cards, and I'm not saying they're getting them for $500, right? They probably are paying
Sure.
an amount of money, but it's one of those things. It's like I'm sitting, I'm like, man, you got to be kidding me. But then, like John, like even Mr. Frey was saying, you won't capitalize on judge cards in California. And or like J-Rod's cards on the East Coast, and he's right. It's where you're gonna find, where you're able to find that kind of stuff. Like you said, we, Anthony and I, we're resellers of all other kinds of stuff, also, and we've always said, and you hit it right on the head. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell, because if you buy it crappy, you're not going to go, you still have to buy it at the right price to sell it at the right price.
So if ComC ever watches this, right, I need a percentage of a cut here. It sounds like I'm a pitch man for ComC. And this is why when I started this conversation, or when we started this conversation about ComC, I said, I wish I had done this 5 years ago, right? ComC is one of the few places that brings the card to me. The average Joe who doesn't have time, right, who loves sports cards. And I spend a lot of my personal time navigating the ComCs and the eBays and the golden marketplaces and some of these various places, looking for things. So I was on these sites anyway, right? I was doing it for my own enjoyment and for my own, looking for my own collection. And essentially what I've done in the last 6 months was transition that to, not only am I still looking for those cards for my PC, I'm also not just purchasing cards that I'm looking to flip. And I'm able to use my years of experience and my knowledge. And, I've tested the waters. Trust me, I've tested a lot of things that have worked and haven't worked. And, maybe, trial by fire a little bit. But that's the one thing that I would advocate in the ComC space is, at least they come to me. The cards are there for me to buy. Right. And it's one, and arguably, I don't know if this is a true statement, at least in my mind, it is. I would argue that ComC is probably a bigger marketplace in some respects than eBay. Right. I know not everybody was probably going to agree with that statement, but, if you were to look listing for listing, the available marketplace today, how many cards are currently listed on ComC versus eBay, it'd be comparable. And so, as long as you're good with buying vintage not vintage, raw cards, it's not the place to buy graded cards, generally speaking. So there's limitations to what ComC provides. They're trying to move their platform into more of a place to acquire graded cards. But as long as you understand what you're doing, there's. I've already explained the hack. That's the hack. I want to assume as little cost as I can. And by the way, when I started this, the other piece to my journey, if anybody's even remotely interested in doing some of this, as I moved to January, February, March, The cards I was buying were cards that if I failed, I was totally fine bringing those back to my personal collection. And so that would be my advice. Only buy stuff that you're ultra comfortable with. Maybe buy stuff that you would want, because at worst, if the card never sells, you can always ship it to yourself and be happy, right? And so that's the environment I went into. And so, yeah, that's why I'm an advocate, is because the buying piece is, to me, where you make all the money. That's where you make every dollar you're going to make, is at the buying side.
I didn't realize StockX only does graded stuff.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Interesting.
And
Now, is
Dom-
StockX, are they owned by PSA now, or are they just like in collaboration? I know that they were like part of the branding used to get in like submission boxes. I don't know if they're like part of the umbrella or not.
I'm not sure. Hey, I'm going to go off camera here for a second. I'll show a couple of cards. Dom's asking some questions.
All right, Dommy.
I can't claim I'm a huge John Stockton collector. Is it in this box? I'm going to say that. It's probably not in this box. I can't be a huge John Stockton collector and not have the XRC or the rookie card, whatever you want to call it. I probably have about 40 of the 88s. And I keep buying them. Anytime I find them for $5, I buy them.
That's classic.
Somebody actually sent me one recently, which I'm super appreciative of. Here's just a small portion of my John Stockton collection. There's probably, I don't know how many cards.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of cards in here, but that's a portion of it.
Do you have a favorite golf card?
Yeah, I'll get to some of those here in a moment. Here's some vintage football Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Sammy
Like that
Boston,
second one there.
Right.
Oh no, the other second.
That
there
one,
you go.
I actually have a higher grade than that. That was
Nice.
This one was a bit of a disappointment. The card's almost diamond shaped, I think. Those just happen to be here. I actually pulled that box out earlier because I was just going to show some random. I can't be a claim to be a Steelers fan and not have some vintage Steelers cards.
Nice.
Right, so I was going to throw those out because I knew that both you guys would have
My day. I saw just the edge of that Bradshaw, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a Bradshaw." It was like doing things for me.
Here's something probably not a lot of people collect. Not that most of the guys watching this are going to collect autographs, but a bunch of cut autographs, some of the biggest names. I have a Varden in here somewhere. I've got a Bobby Jones in here somewhere. I've got pretty much anybody who's on the top 10 list as far as major championships won. I have certified autographs in card format. Again, most of those guys are cuts because a lot of those guys, some of them lived pre-1920. And so I've got some pretty amazing cut autographs. Let me actually get to some of the actual cards.
Some of the actual ones.
Michael, or do you want to start digging into those boxes behind him?
I know, man. It's like, damn.
Here, let me show this off. I don't know that I've ever shared. You guys and anybody who watches this will be the first group to ever know that I purchased this. This gets back to that earlier comment that I made. Buy stuff, specifically golf. If you're into cricket, which I don't know who is, but I guess if you're into cricket, maybe some early soccer stuff, or football if you're un-American and you call soccer football. That you can buy stuff in the UK, and I would highly suggest if you're into more oddball sports, check out the UK. There's still really good quality stuff. But this is a 1927 set of golf cards. It's one of the earliest golf sets that had more than 10 cards in it. This is 1927. It's got 2 Bobby Jones. Some people consider it the rookie card. I don't. It's one of the earliest Bobby Jones cards out there.
Those cards are 96 years old.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got cards, some golf cards. So there's one of the Bobby Jones. Matter of fact, 2 of the Bobby Joneses. So let me see if I can get the glare off that. There we go. So those are the 2 Bobby Jones cards in this set. There's multiple Harry Vardens. It's one of the OG, in my opinion, one of the OG golf sets out there. It's not the oldest golf set out there, but it's one of the OG golf sets. I literally bought this from somebody whose family owned this. It looked like the pages, the plastics that came in were from 1950. And it's essentially somebody's father, grandfather, smoked tobacco, collected the cards along the way. They had it forever. The family no longer had use for it. I picked up the entire set, and this wasn't me dickering with them. They literally listed it. Picked up the entire set for like $150. You're not going to find a complete set of 1927. You don't care what sports you're talking about.
Exactly.
You're not going to find stuff like that. And if you do, I would imagine if this set came available in the U.S. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is a way scarce set. Could you put this thing together? Sure, it'd take you some time, but you could put it together. But in America, even back when I bought it probably would have been $500, $600, $700, maybe even $1,000, but $500, $600, $700 at least. And that's the fair value, considering it's got 2 of the earliest Bobby Jones cards. That's kind of a fun set. Like I said, besides maybe my wife and my son, I don't know if I've ever shared some of that with anybody.
That's
awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is pretty freaking cool.
Graded this one at this year's National. That is a Sam Snead rookie card in my mind. Victor, if you happen to watch this, I know you're going to argue that point. Sam Snead rookie card. By the way, I really like Victor and his channel. I want to...
Mr. Frew had a question. How does that compare to the T206? Those other cards.
Well, so let's say it this way: 1 in 1,000 collectors, maybe even greater than that, 1 in 5,000 collectors have a desire to own these cards. So it certainly doesn't have the mystique that baseball does. And rightfully so. We understand this. We understand the evolution of baseball, America's game, blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm a huge baseball collector, as most of you guys know.
Yeah.
So I love baseball cards just as much as the next guy. So the collectors aren't there. Are they more scarce? Well, if you go look at pop reports, T206s aren't that scarce. Right? If I compare the scarcity of those versus like a 1901 Ogden's, and this is like a multi-sport set. This is from 1901, so you're talking 125 years old.
Oh my goodness!
Right. There's less of these now. There's less of these in the pop reports, and here's what I guess I would tell everybody. I'd re-echo this point. The vast majority of these probably still exist in the UK. And because the UK, the way I started some of this conversation, doesn't believe in grading, they think it's the farce. I don't know how scarce the card really is. My guess is that there's plenty of them, and I bought plenty of them, quite honestly, in raw condition. And so I would guess, this is just a knee-jerk response. 50% of the T206s, specifically the big names, are probably graded at this point in time. Probably 10% of the equivalent golfers are graded.
Oh, wow.
Right. So how scarce is it? It's probably no more rare or scarce, but they just don't have the same collector base. This is the card I would consider Bobby Jones's rookie card. This is a 1926 Lambert. It's a tobacco card. There is a card that came out in 1925 through 1929. The research I've done is that the Bobby Jones wasn't created in 1925. So even though that set is listed as a multi-year set, the way how it gets slabbed up, it's called a 1925 through 1929 card. I think I'm saying that wrong. Regardless, the research I've done, I don't truly know if the Bobby Jones existed in 1925. So from my perspective as a golf history sports card collector, this would be the card I would point somebody to if they said, "Hey, John, what's the Bobby Jones rookie card? I want to own one." This is the card. Now, this card, this is a 4.5, probably between $300 and $500.
For Bobby
And
Jones?
you're again, so you're saying one of the top 5 to 10 greatest golfers of all time, probably the most impactful outside of Jack and Tiger. Maybe throw Arnie ahead of him as far as impact to the game. And you can get his 100-year-old card for, the elite, the pinnacle card. You can't do that with Babe Ruth or DiMaggio or Ted Williams or Greenberg or Cy Young, those guys. You just can't do it. So that's why, to me, if golf is a passion of folks, right now is the time to be buying golf.
Is there a holy grail card for you?
That I own or in general?
I guess that you don't have yet. Is he?
Yeah, that you do not have.
So there's well, the Spalding one I referenced earlier, just from the scarcity of the Spalding cards, there's a couple of golfers in that set. Then there's these 1900s cards, so right around the turn of the century. They're either pronounced Coop or Cope. It's COPE. It was a set of golfers. They're all like artist renditions. They're super scarce, super rare. They've made a bunch of reproductions. So you can actually find them on eBay, the reproductions on eBay. I don't own a lot of those just because when I buy them, I want to buy a certain quality of them. I've had a couple of opportunities to buy some really beat up ones. And it's funny because in other sports, I would probably have bought those cards in the conditions that I've had opportunities to buy them. But when it comes to my golf collection, for whatever reason, I would rather, because they're so expensive on top of that, I would rather save the money in the original investment and not do the upgrade situation that we talked about earlier.
Right.
For those cards. So they would be on my list. This one is a fun card. Best part about this is a PSA 8. So it's one of the finest copies in existence. It's a cut card. This is a strip card. Walter Hagen, be his rookie year. The Spalding card that I keep referring to is a 1926 Spalding Walter Hagen. It's a photo card, and that's the one that's worth about 10 grand roughly, depending upon condition and things like that. But this is a cut card, so it's same. To me, it's a rookie card. It's the same year. But when I bought this card, I think I paid. You can't buy this card for this price anymore. But I think I paid like $75 for this.
Oh wow!
And at the time, I didn't appreciate the fact that I was buying an 8. I didn't understand. I didn't care about the pop reports and what my quality, what my grade was compared to some of the other grades. And there may be. I haven't looked in a long time. There may be other copies that are technically graded higher, but this is one of the highest graded cards out there. And I paid like nothing for it. Right.
Awesome.
And that's maybe the beauty in golf cards. If I could kind of sell anybody who's interested in golf cards on golf cards in today's video, that would be the thing is dollar for dollar. If you've got as much of a passion in golf cards as you do in baseball, football, basketball, hockey, or other sports, dollar for dollar, you're probably still saving a ton by investing your dollars today in golf. The irony about that is when you talk about the most popular sports in the world, is this a hidden market? I'm not going to try and claim it is, but could this be a hidden market? Who knows?
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's just crazy that you sit there and you have a card that is 122 years old in your hands.
Yeah.
That's just amazing to me.
What I would really like to see
amazing to me.
What I'd really like to see the market do is like really start marketing to like this generation of collector that wants to like collect like the new golfers that are out. You know what I mean? Like I can't even like outside of like Tiger Woods or like big name people like him, I can't even really name any golfers. Like I think it would be cool like if there were people like that were chasing these young golfers like they do like the Joe Burrows or the Herberts or whomever.
We've only seen that one time in history, and that was with Tiger.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I don't expect that we ever will. And it gets back to the problem with golf is just the lack of consistency of distribution.
Mhm.
We see a golf set pop up every 5 to 10 years. And because of that, you're never going to get the collector base that you're going to have in more mainstream sports. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it. And as a golf collector, I used to really bug me because I wanted autographs of all of these guys, and I wanted consistent rookie cards of all of these guys. And at some point in time, it's actually what I've grown to love about collecting golf. I love that it's so oddball and that it's, it doesn't fit the mainstream.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that I can, if somebody was to start with $10,000 and, they really didn't care what sport they were to invest in, you can go build one of the greatest golf collections that most people will ever see for $10,000. You can't buy a Mickey Mantle rookie card for $10,000 unless it's a beat up copy. Right. So when you look at the collectability of it and what you can really, how far your dollar really goes, golf's, a lot of us play it. I know I play it 100 times a year, if not more. And I hate where the sport's at today. I don't hate the live thing. I actually really appreciate the live thing, but in some respects, but the sport's fractured, and who knows what golf will look like in the next 5 to 10 years. And,
what do you think would happen if they were to offer like golf cards at like golf, like the gift shops at like the different golf clubs? Like, do you think that's something that could catch on?
Maybe with kids, maybe there's a play there, right? We all started, maybe not all of us, but the vast majority of us started as kids. Right?
Yeah.
The reality is I don't know, giving away, like when I went to the National, I did the VIP pass. I got the Panini rookie card pack,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually an interesting thing because, depending upon what happens with the rookie cards, some of those kind of oddball cards might end up having some value, which normally they probably wouldn't, just with the distribution of what's taking place with Panini and football right now. But my point to that is, unless there's a randomness, pack opening, gambling appeal there, even from a kid perspective, that's the hook. It's always been the hook. Opening up, paying 50 cents for something or $5. I don't even know how much a pack is. That's how long it's been since I bought a pack. So let's say it's $5 today. Back when I was a kid, it was 50 cents. 50 cents, you open that pack, and the chance that Frank Thomas rookie card or Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card's in there, that's the award.
Yeah.
Right? And you might get a stinker of a pack, and you might get a pack that maybe doesn't have those cards in it, but potentially has a Ryan Sandberg and a Don Mattingly, and that's how we build your passion. Mm-hmm. But then there's the chase for the Tiger Woods. So just giving them out as kind of individuals, there's no value there. Mm-hmm. Adults aren't there. You're going to get guys like me who, yeah, sure, I'll take it and, shove it in a box and see what happens 10 years down the road. But, my old man and most of the guys that I golf with, which, I've got a pretty vast friend group in the golf space, there's zero value for them.
I tell you, Anthony, basically, I bet you golf cards, if they made them today, the way they make wrestling cards, right, where they're throwing in the legend type ones, I bet you'd be the same type of way where the legends cards would have more value than the younger guys' cards, because you just don't know what those young guys are going to be, because a kid could go a few years on a tour, not do anything, and all of a sudden something happens and he goes on a hot streak, and all of a sudden, boom, he moves up the rankings and he becomes, considered one of the best in the world. So I wonder if they consistently made those sets, right? Because you think about it, if Panini all of a sudden came out with a set, who would you want? You'd want Tiger Woods, you'd want Jack, you'd want Arnie, you'd want Gary Player. If they put in Hogan and Hagen and Bobby Jones, those are the ones you would gravitate towards rather than, Joe Thomas, Joe Smith, Pete, whoever.
There's a subgroup of guys that don't have mainstream cards. So the reality is Michael, I was kind of chatting with you guys before we kicked this off, and I was I lost my thought during that conversation, but I was asking if you watched John, 380's Kid.
Yeah.
And you'd seen some of his stuff, but he did a video today, and he's done a couple of videos. He collects vintage, but he doesn't buy the rookie cards. And his ploy there, his thought process is he wants to stretch his dollar. And that's great. I love John's collection. I love watching his content. Great channel. Anybody who's watching this, go give him a subscribe and check him out. John's got a great channel. But the thing I would argue with him about, or debate with him about, the rookie card is where the dollar's at, and that's where the collectors are going to go. And so that's what it is. Yeah, you're going to need autographs, relics. Some people love them, some people hate them. What the value is there, who knows, really. Rookie cards will have value, and autographs are going to have value. And, so to your point, throw all the legends out there, make sure that you have autographs of those legends, make it affordable, make that the chase or part of the chase. Again, I'm not a huge modern guy. I do buy modern cards, but I don't necessarily open packs. Who knows what a purple numbered through 199 and a gold numbered through 50, what that's going to, maybe that is the hobby in 15 years and 30 years, and maybe it's a fad that's gone, right? I remember when relic cards originally hit the hobby, that was the thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Today, they're a dime a dozen, and I get it. The manufacturers have kind of screwed the pooch there, putting in non-game worn, authenticated stuff. But, you got to have the chase. You got to have the it rookies, the hottest names, because publishing a Ben Hogan base card right now, I'm going to appreciate it just because I'm a big golf nerd. But your average Joe collector probably, there's not going to be value to it. And this hobby today and for the last 40 years, it's all about how much something is worth. That's the reality.
Oh yeah, and there you go. And if that's a good thing, that's the question. Would it be a good time to buy a Woods autograph?
Yeah, I don't know how much they're currently selling for. I know that during the pandemic, I even thought about selling a couple of mine. I don't know if I have one handy. I've got quite a few. I think there's a couple in some boxes. Depending on price is everything. I've mentioned it a few times. There's a Tiger Woods autograph.
That's awesome.
It's all about what the entry price is. I think any time that you can get a Tiger Woods, a Michael Jordan, probably Tom Brady. Not saying that some of the second tier GOATs don't have value, but those guys for the foreseeable future will always have value. But
well, I mean, and I hate to put it this way, but the truth of the matter is this: if you're going to buy one, the best time to buy it is when they are still living and breathing on the earth.
Yeah.
Because once they are no longer available, I mean, that price is going to just go bananas.
Yeah, I actually recorded a video prior to making this. It's going to be posted tomorrow on my channel. It's another mail day. I know I just posted one yesterday, but I got another package from Golden Auctions, and in that package was a Willie Mays card. And the reason why I bring that up is I've been buying Willie Mays as much Willie Mays as I possibly can because he's undervalued right now. I don't care what card you're talking about; it's undervalued, and he's the oldest living Hall of Famer. The reality is when he passes, God forbid, when he passes, people are going to go run out and look for autographs. They're going to run out and look for, certain cards. The rookie cards are already at a price point that 99% of us can't afford. So people will buy those cards. And in that video that I recorded earlier, I actually made this exact same point that I'm going to make here. I think Willie Mays will have a new floor. So we're going to see the spike post, his demise. He'll come back down. They all do. But his floor will remain higher. So if you can pick up Willie Mays, if you're fortunate enough and have the expendable cash to pick up some Willie Mays cards, Not only do I think you'll have a short-term ability to move those cards when he does pass, because that will drive interest in his hobby. And, I do think that over time, right now, we're probably as low in Willie Mays cards as we're going to see for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And you make a good point. So Anthony and I are big wrestling fans.
Yep.
And, last week you had a legend of Terry Funk pass away, and you had a shocking one, Bray Wyatt go ahead and pass away. And you talk about the difference they were, you were able to get, again, yeah, it's the, the, I guess the morbidity of the hobby, right? When they were alive and everything, their card prices or with autographs were here. All of a sudden, those guys passed away, and within minutes, it shot, all the way up to where, you were buying them for, $50, $30, so on and so forth. And now they're $200, $250
Yep.
because those are the only ones that you're ever going to be able to get.
Yeah.
You want to know the crazy thing about that? Remember I told you that my Bray Wyatts started selling the day he died?
Yeah.
After I sold out of my Bray Wyatt cards, I even started selling like cards of Braun Strowman because he had Bray Wyatt, the Fiend Bray Wyatt, up on his shoulder in the card.
Oh, wow.
And different cards of other wrestlers because Bray Wyatt was pictured in the card with them. So it was like, even to the point where people were actually looking for cards with them pictured in it, even if it wasn't a card of them. It was wild.
So Dom has a SGC of the 1973 Willie Mays.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Great card.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So the point there, I hate even thinking about telling the story, but I got super fortunate. I bought like 3 Arnold Palmer cards, not because I thought he was into his last days, but it was ironic. I had seen him probably a week-ish before it was announced that he wasn't doing well. And he was on Golf Channel or I seen him on a broadcast, and he just looked terrible. He was really slow in his speech, and I think he had missed that year's Masters as far as just attending the Masters because of his health. And so, I just had that random thought of, you know what, let me go look and see what the prices are. And I ended up buying like 3 Arnold Palmer autographs right in the $50 price point. And literally he passed away, and within hours, those cards were selling for $150, $200, $300. And they've continued to stay high. Another thing, and that's interesting about those events is people then, it's ironic, people then will look around and say, okay, well, Willie Mays just passed, or Hank Aaron just passed. Who's the next guy to go? And you'll start seeing a slight increase in that. It's on a short window, but you'll see people go target those next oldest, most likely to no longer be with us, to try and capitalize and get into those cards. We're human, so we have short memories, so that eventually fades until that person does eventually pass.
Yep.
But it's collectors are funny. Like we're always looking for the angle. Not only collectors, just people inside the hobby, whatever, investors, dealers, collectors, resellers, whatever your shtick is. I think most of us are a little of all of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're funny people because I think that it's interesting to watch our patterns when things like this take place. But I'm clearly doing it. I said it in my video, which will be posted tomorrow. I just mentioned it here. I think right now is the time to buy Willie Mays. I really do, especially if you truly want to collect it, right? Like if I had $100 to spend and I considered myself somebody who really wanted to buy some Willie Mays cards, and another card was in my sights to buy, I'd buy the Willie Mays right now. I just think that there's a potential that you'll never see it for the prices that you potentially could buy it for today. God forbid, and I do mean that. God forbid we don't have.
Oh yeah, no, but you're right in what you're saying in that when something like this happens to athletes, you hit it on the head. A new floor gets established with them. Things like their regular card. I mean, you're really talking more like memorabilia type stuff, autograph type stuff like that, right? You're right. There's going to be a new a new low established. What it will be, we don't know, but it's going to be higher than it's going to be higher than what the low is today.
Yeah.
If your entry, like you said, if your entry point to a Willie Mays is $100 today, and God forbid, in the future when he does go ahead and pay, that's not going to be the entry point anymore.
Yep.
The entry point
because we grow this appreciation. Like, the weird part about us as collectors is, I think if you were to go ask an astute baseball collector, right, and you said, name the 5 greatest baseball players of all time, Willie Mays' name is going to be brought up. Probably 90%. If we went to ask 100 astute baseball collectors, 90% of the time, 90 of those 100 are going to have Willie Mays in their top 5, or he's going to be mentioned in that top ranks.
Yep.
But you go look at his value. His peer of his era, generally speaking, is the Mick. And we understand Mickey's allure and some of that, but it's crazy just how much more expensive his stuff is, dollar for dollar, year over year. At some point, when we no longer have him to appreciate, that's when we start appreciating him.
Right.
And the values. So I think that we'll see some of those values. I think we've seen it with Clemente. I think we still see that today with Clemente, right? Hell of a baseball player, but he's been gone for how long time.
Yeah.
And we value him more today, ironically, than some of the peers that were equally as good. Not saying he's not a top tier baseball player, because he is, but you look at Frank Robinson. Frank Robinson never got the appreciation because we had him for a longer period of time, right? Clemente, equally as great of a baseball player. And I realize I'm talking to, I'm in the company of fans that, are like, don't talk bad about Clemente. But, Roberto Clemente, because we lost him so early, the appreciation for who he was grew much quicker. Right now, I think Frank Robinson is the most underappreciated Hall of Famer of all time, first of all. And, at some point, will his collector base ever catch on? Who knows, right? But the longer we have somebody, sometimes that's part of what drives values or keeps values low. But when you're talking about the elites, and I think, in my mind, Willie's in that top tier.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I think we're going to see a pretty big spike during that event, and I think that we'll find pretty strong new lows.
Wasn't Willie like somewhat like an uncle or something, like to like Barry Bonds?
Godfather.
I remember hearing
he's Barry Bonds' godfather.
I remember hearing there was some kind of like family legacy there.
Yep.
And that was why Bonds wanted to actually go play for the Giants.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on this, but I think that's exactly it. The Giants connection. I think that was part of it.
Oh yeah, he wanted to go play there because that's where his godfather played and stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
When he had the opportunity to.
Yeah, when he stabbed young Anthony in the heart and left the Pirates. We were good.
It's a whole conversation for another day, but he gets my vote for the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that.
For sure.
Yeah, I think, he did play, but back then, small market, I don't know if it meant as much as it does today. I think Clemente is like a number of those guys in that time frame that either got injured or passed away, of the what could have been. When you saw what he did up to that, you're like, when you look at how his career was projecting, you're like, oh my goodness gracious. So the allure of, could you imagine what this guy could have done if he would have had another 8 years in the game, or so on and so forth, those types of things. That, I think that's one of those things that, that does look like. Who was who was it? The Boston Red Sox got beamed in the head, and
you think Kirby Puckett played for the Twins?
No, it was back in the '60s. It was Tony
way before my time.
Tony Guglielmi, I think. I forgot how you say his last name. For the Red Sox, he was I think a young lefty hitter, and I think he had just, either as a rookie or a second-year player, massive home run hitter, was leading the league and everything. And next year, he got beamed right in the temple before they were wearing the helmets. And and a lot of people go, man, can you imagine what could have been of him when you look at what he was doing? I think that's what happens with some of these guys. And like you were saying, I think that's why you don't appreciate some of the other guys, because you saw their whole career play out.
Yeah.
And here's the bad part. Here's where the thing is we saw them get sports old.
Yeah, there was reality there for sure. Yep. There's definitely reality there. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if he's that old of a player and I know who he is, put him in the Hall of Fame. That means he did something right.
Yeah. Again, life cut short, plain accident. I really do geek out with kind of the whole Hall of Fame thing, specifically on the baseball side. I think the Baseball Hall of Fame is probably the most intriguing of all the Hall of Fames. And I do believe that there's positions, position makes a huge difference in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
You look at some of these peak, and I think, Yankees fans, I think the thing that they like to recite, and I don't disagree with them necessarily, what he meant to some of those Yankees teams of the 70s. I mean, he was the guy, right? Reggie was part of those teams, and Winfield was part of those teams, of course. But, Munson was the captain, essentially. He was looked at as, the guy. And the fact that he played catcher and life cut short, do I think he would have gotten all the statistical numbers to maybe qualify, generally speaking, for the Hall of Fame had he got sports old? Probably not, right? Catchers, unfortunately, they take a wear and tear that most don't. But for his position, I do think he's certainly Hall of Fame worthy. I can think of
many.
I can think of a hell of a lot of other Hall of Famers that shouldn't be in there. Harold Baines being one of them. Mm-hmm. When you look at somebody like Thurman Munson, he certainly should be there.
Well, I think we should just so I lived in I grew up on Long Island. I lived in New York during that time frame and everything. And as a as a Mets fan, you looked over and you saw Thurman Munson, and he was. I mean, he like Kenny said, he was the straw that stirred the drink. He was the heart and soul of that team. He was the one, the one guy stuff. And I mean, I'll never forget, that day, that August day when it was announced, that he, wound up, he was flying his own personal plane, going home just to see his family on an off day, and it crashed and everything. And it was just, like I said, just remember the atmosphere around, all of a sudden how it changed so much and stuff. And, he's another one of those guys where not appreciated. And I think, like up to your point, as a catcher, the problem that he would have had if you went strictly by numbers is he wouldn't have, because I think when you look at the catchers that put up a lot of big numbers, there really aren't a lot of them that are consistent from year one to year whatever it is in their career. A lot of the guys that put up those big numbers, they do have a chunk of time where they go like crazy. And I'm not talking, I mean, not like, like Mike Piazza hitting what he did, and Johnny Bench like him, and Carlton Fisk, not like those, but like there's a bunch of guys where when they're considered like the best catcher in baseball at that point in time, it's such a short period of time. It's different in other positions where you could be the best second baseman and you could be that for 10, 12 years. Catchers, very rare do you see that type of stuff, and I think even more today, the way the game is changing even more, it'll be a little less, because you're that good, they're moving you. Like they don't want you back there anymore.
Bench or Piazza or Ivan Rodriguez, because they could do it for such a prolonged period of time. Mm-hmm. But you look at Joe Mauer recently, right? Like he's an MVP as a catcher. I mean, come on, like his peak was so much shorter. And I know that some baseball historians will say, well, it's a 7-year peak. And, what do they do over the 7 best years of their career? Well, for catchers, I think the peak's probably that it's not a 7-year peak. You probably are looking at what they did over a 5-year period, and then you start arguing, is 5 years enough to get you in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah,
probably not, right? Again, I'll be the de facto Yankees fan. You think about the lineage of the history of the Yankees, and there's always been greats, and generally there's always multiple greats in some of those teams that we think of. You think of Ruth and Garrett and Mantle, and but there's always, generally every decade or every era, there's the one guy that's Ruth, Garrett, DiMaggio, Mantle. To me, it's Thurman Munson over something like Reggie, because I still think of Reggie as a part-time Yankee.
Well, right? I think the difference you have is when you think about it, back, when you look at some of those other guys, Thurman was a homegrown dude. Reggie, they paid a lot of money to come. Winfield, they paid a lot of money to come. Him, Mattingly, from that time frame, that 70s and going into the 80s when Mattingly was in there. Those are the things. It's like, but again, if you're a baseball guy and you're that type of thing, and you look at it and you're like, Don Mattingly's another one of those guys. Should he be in? Should he be in? I don't know. But all I can tell you was one thing. There was a time period before his back went out on him. I don't know if you could say there was more than 5 guys better than him in baseball. I mean, that's how good that guy was, and no one understood it. No one could really see it, but he was just that damn good,
Without having the position argument, just looking at it from a truly offensive perspective, I will challenge anybody to go look at Kirby Puckett's record or numbers. They're almost identical. It's so crazy. The numbers, the hits, the home runs, the doubles, the counting stats, the RBIs are almost identical to Mattingly. And to your point, Kirby Puckett was a hell of a baseball player, and he got the benefit of a little bit of the Clemente thing. I'm not. By the way, Clemente shoe in Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that he wasn't, but I agree with Michael's point earlier about there's a mystique about what could have been, and I think Kirby Puckett maybe benefited just a hair from some of that.
Yep.
Specifically when you look at him in comparisons to somebody like Donnie Baseball, But I as a kid of that point in time, there was a moment in baseball that Don Mattingly was the greatest baseball player. I can't say the same thing about Kirby Puckett. I just never once looked at Kirby Puckett and said, that's the best baseball player on the planet.
Yep.
I truly do think that there was a moment in time where you could, some people might argue it, but I think it's, if there is an argument, I think most of us could concede, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe Don Mattingly was the best baseball player on the planet for this year or that year or a certain stretch of time. That's the difference. Somebody like Del Murphy, you could, he kind of falls in that same camp. Back-to-back MVPs. There was a stretch where Del Murphy was one of the greatest baseball players on the planet for a team that's extremely popular in the Braves. In my mind, he's probably a Hall of Famer. Lou Whitaker's not thought of as the greatest of any one moment in time, but he's probably a Hall of Famer. Dick Allen's a deserved Hall of Famer, in my opinion. I'd take all those guys over a handful of some of the guys that I've seen go in recently.
Yeah, most definitely. When you look at it, it just seems, that's what people are like, I mean, I'm a baseball guy first and foremost over any other sport and everything. I mean, I still coach today. I still play. I mean, I love the game, and stuff. And it's interesting, that when you sit there and you look and people go, oh my, so-and-so got into the Hall of Fame and everything, and we'll have discussions like, yeah, he was good. He was really, really good. But to your point, me, for someone who watched the game so much, I'm like, yeah, if you told me name the top 5 players at the position he plays, he's probably not getting in the top 5.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that doesn't mean he's not a Hall of Famer, but I mean, it's just what the Hall of Fame has become. So be it.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing like, again, Harold Baines is one of those guys.
I love Fred McGriff, and I think he's a deserved Hall of Famer, but Fred McGriff's in. I don't understand how McGriff's in. And again, there was one time you could say McGriff, arguably was one of the top 5 players in a specific year. I think we could make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
He dominated at moments in time, right? But the same argument goes for somebody like Don Mattingly. There's no doubt. Now, Herman Munson, I don't feel the same way about, but I also believe that there's intangibles about baseball that need to be appreciated. And oftentimes it's too much about counting stats. And in modern day, it's too much about advanced analytics and less about, the dude was just a winner. Like he was the guy. He was the leader on one of the best baseball teams that won world championships. That accounts for something. And it's funny because we can see Derek Jeter 20 years later and give him all the same credit. By the way, I'm a Derek Jeter fan, so I'm a believer in Derek Jeter. But we we say all those things about somebody like Derek Jeter, and then you say, and he had the 3,000 hits, and he was this, and he was that. But then you look at somebody just 20, 30 years before him, and he doesn't have the numbers, and Reggie was on that team, and okay, come on.
Well, they're going to have to figure out what to do with numbers because players aren't going to get the quote unquote Hall of Fame, numbers.
Yeah,
the 500 home runs, the 3,000 hits, the 3,000, the 300 wins.
Yep.
There are certain things that like I look at it and I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Randy. I might have been Randy Johnson. I think Randy Johnson might have been like the last 300 game winner that most of us are ever going to see. If not, no one's going to hit that number anymore just because it's not the way the game is looked at anymore. So these quote unquote, Hall of Fame numbers are going to have to change to something else. And to me, you have to look at what that guy did as an individual in a team sport and realize that it's very different than it was. And now a guy that hits 350 home runs is just as important today as a guy who was hitting 500 home runs, in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
From that standpoint.
Yeah, I think there's baseball gets too much praise for, we've collected numbers for so many years and counting stats have been valuable up to a certain point in time. And because the game hasn't changed as much as, say, something like basketball or football, that it gets more benefit of the doubt. Well, their day of reckoning, I think, is here. And to your point, the Hall of Fame and who gets in and who doesn't and what qualifies them probably doesn't hold the same water that it did 10 years ago.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So, but hey, holy crap, we've been going for 2 hours.
Yep.
Man, oh man, John, thank you so much for giving up your time. Holy cow.
Yeah, you've been a wealth of knowledge, brother.
Yeah,
really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For giving us your time. It was great conversation. I mean, I love the golf stuff. It's just something you don't hear a lot about, and to see some of those cards, like I said, I still can't believe that 122-year-old card was sitting in your hand.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I just find that amazing, man.
Cool.
And then that's ridiculous. Like if it was, thank God it's in a holder, because if it wasn't, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? It's in your hands. Get out of your hands. Figure out a way to put that in something else, stuff like that and everything.
That's what she said.
But thank you, Don. Yeah, you don't want to have that card next to your chips and salsa.
Yeah.
Oh
definitely.
crap, But again, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Got any last words, before we go ahead and sign off or anything?
No, I guess I'd say, the YouTube community is a great community. I appreciated to get to know you guys tonight. I know, Michael, you and I have had some chances to talk. I'm excited about where sports cards are at. we hear a lot of just negative vibes, and then we hear a lot of positive vibes, and there's a lot of contradicting information out there. The reality is we've had ups and downs. This is not the first up and down. It was a monumental spike that we went through in the COVID years. But at the end of the day, it's still pictures of men and the people that we idolize.
Yep.
No matter what the sport is or what it is.
Yep.
I guess my hope, though, for the hobby, kind of in a move forward, is we're coming out of what I hope is a money grab situation where everybody's looking to capitalize on somebody else. Some of the things I know that we're trying to do from a Chasing Majors perspective is how can we get back for free, right? Like what can we do to provide free tools, free information? So we have been changing some of what we're doing on the website, chasingmajors.com. Not necessarily employing for everybody to go there, but we are looking to do some price guide related information out there, kick some of that off in the last couple of weeks, looking to expand some of that. But the whole goal is free information, right? We spend a lot of money on the pictures of these players that we idolize.
Right.
What can we get back that's free and help grow? Because I do have concerns that we'll have a thriving industry and hobby in the next 50 years. And, God forbid I'm here in 50 years to see it, but if I can help in those spaces, I certainly want to. And so I say that very long-winded way to say, if anybody needs anything, if anybody wants to chat, I'm available, chasingmajors.com. You can find all my contact information over there. Might not be the fastest to get back to somebody, but I definitely will try and get back to people.
Website is linked in the description.
Yep.
So you go right over there and everything, and stuff like that. Yeah, like I said, I appreciate your time, appreciate you, talking. Hey, I know it's a long ways away, but it'll be here really soon. I'll be in Cleveland. Anthony, if he has to be there, and as long as
I'll be there.
As long as he's still in the country, I guess, unless he moves out of the country, might be the only reason why he won't be there.
Yep.
So if you go ahead and you show up, John, the three of us got to go ahead and go off and just sit down and meet up and
yeah, let's go. When we're there, I want to get more beer. Yeah, I want to. I'm not. Sounds like I'm an alcoholic, but I'd love to go. Have a couple adult beverages and get to know people a little bit more intimately. The social thing was amazing, by the way. I rather enjoyed that. I just didn't have the time to spend because I made the cardinal sin of staying too far away because I wanted Chicago nightlife versus Chicago O'Hare Airport nightlife. But I'm looking forward to Cleveland. I hope to see you guys there. Hopefully if we get an opportunity to do this in the future, if you guys ever find a week that you're, looking for somebody to come talk about randomness with you guys, I'd be more than happy to join you in the meantime.
You got it. Definitely. We definitely have to get you on also so we get, a fresher update on the whole ComC thing, how that's going also, and all kind of stuff. So, for sure. But, hey, everybody, again, check out John's information. It's below in the description. There's a lot of good things. Are we going to get it? So I know we're trying to talk about when's the next bourbon and bulk carts.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I was like, this would be a great series.
Yeah, the first one was really good.
I've had a ridiculous bourbon collection. That's all I'm going to say. I have a ridiculous bourbon collection. I've got the stuff that nobody else can get. By the way, I'm a drinker. Meaning I don't just put it on the shelf. Unlike my baseball cards that I like to put on the shelf and look at, I don't like my bourbon to sit there and not be tasted. So, if you two ever come out to Denver, I've got plenty of bourbon to share with you guys. We got plenty of stories, of course.
There you go.
I gotta figure some of that out. I was actually thinking about doing some more like show and tell. Show some of this collection off. There's only a fraction of what I've got hanging around here, but maybe doing more of a deep dive into some of the collection and showing some really cool bourbon at the same time.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, well, thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it. Don't forget, if you're not subscribed to John, definitely go do that and everything. We appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you next week. We'll be on Anthony's channel.
Yep.
And we'll have another really good show. Thanks a lot. Have a great night, everybody. See you next week.
See you guys.